The Fallout universe is one of alternate science. Physics doesn't work exactly the same way as it does in our universe, but almost everything we find in the Fallout universe at least attempts to explain itself scientifically. That said, it's a universe of very strange things. Radiation that is far more potent and long-lasting than radiation in our own universe. Viruses that are unknown to our science, weaponized technologies that we could only dream of, and even aliens. These aliens are based on technology, albeit alien technology. But there are some things in the Fallout universe that can't be explained away by this universe's fictional science. Even here, there are some things that appear to be supernatural. Let's go through some of these ghostly encounters to figure out which ones are rooted in science and which ones are truly supernatural. We'll start by answering the question, are ghosts real in the Fallout universe? And that question is definitively answered for us in Fallout 2. While exploring the den in Fallout 2, we discover the Great Aninus. He's a bit of a charlatan trying to make money by performing magic, but he does tell us the story about a princess who was poisoned by an evil magician in order to attain her magical amulet. The Great Aninus claims that her spirit still haunts this very building, right in the next room. But we can only find this spirit at midnight. If we wait until midnight and then enter the room, lo and behold, we find a ghostly presence, and we can talk to it. The presence claims to be the ghost of a woman named Anna Winslow, and it seems like Aninus' story was right. She was murdered, and her locket was stolen. In order for her spirit to be at peace, she needs to have her locket retrieved and returned to her. To solve this mystery, we need to interview the other residents of the den to see if they know anything about it. We pick up our next clue when we talk to Mom at Mom's Diner. She tells us that around 2 years ago, there was a guy, whose name she isn't sure of, living in the very house where Anna's ghost now resides, and he left abruptly for no reason. She didn't know his name, but she knew it started with a J. It was Joseph or Joel or something like that. So we need to find this guy. And we find him if we go to the exit grid of the East Den. There we find 3 thugs milling around, but one of them is named Joey. His name begins with a J. If we talk with Joey, he claims that he found a shiny golden locket, and he has it on his inventory. We can retrieve it a number of ways: by buying it from him, passing a persuasion check to get it from him, stealing it from him, or killing him and taking it. But however we get the locket, if we return to the haunted house and give it to the ghost of Anna Winslow, she turns into a pile of bones. The Chosen One realizes that to truly put her spirit at rest, he needs to bury these bones, and so grabbing a shovel and heading to the den's graveyard, we can find Anna's tombstone. We don't know what's buried here because we have her bones, but we can dig up her grave, bury the bones, and then cover it back up. If we do, we complete the quest, and Anna Winslow no longer haunts the den. So this story tells us that, yeah, in the Fallout universe, ghosts are real. And it also tells us that they're corporeal. There is something physically present within them. This ghost dropped her own bones when she got the item that was keeping her spirit manifested. So now that we know that ghosts are real, moving forward, we have to decide if the ghostly encounter we're exploring is really paranormal or if it can be explained another way. Next, as part of the primary quest for Fallout New Vegas, we head to the Goodsprings Cemetery to find clues about the identity of the man who tried to kill the courier. There we find some distinctive cigarette butts, a clue that we can use to track this man. But if we linger in the graveyard a bit too long, eventually we begin to hear voices. The voices aren't consistent. They don't speak all the time. Sometimes they're pretty faint. Sometimes it's hard to tell them from ambience. But sometimes they're distinct. There's no mistaking it. These are otherworldly voices. And yet we don't find any loudspeakers here. We don't find anyone hiding here. This is a hilltop overlooking a valley. There's nowhere for anyone to be hiding. Maybe it's just me, but I seemed to find that the closer I stood to one of the graves, the louder the voices became. I've read reports that if we stay here long enough, we can find evidence of poltergeists. Items will be tossed around the graveyard, and we'll even see a ghostly apparition. However, while testing this, I spent several days in-game in the graveyard, and none of that ever happened. There is a bunch of junk on the northern section of the graveyard, tin cans and beer bottles. Perhaps players in the past walked over these, triggered their clanking sound effect, and thought that there was some sort of poltergeist activity when there wasn't. There was a moment when I was exploring the graveyard at night where I thought I heard some cans clanking. But I think that was just background ambience, and I never saw anything fly around, and I never saw a ghost. But I did hear the voices, and the voices can't be denied. We know that ghosts are real in this universe, and I can find no other explanation for the voices at the Good Springs Cemetery than that they are the ghostly voices of the dead people who were buried here. Next is Sulik from Fallout 2. Upon meeting Sulik, a tribal in the town of Klamath, he's one of the first people who can join us as a companion. The unique part about his story is that he has a bone lodged in his nose, a bone that he calls his Grampy Bone.
The spirits with me, friend. They be all around. Sometimes talk. Spirits be everywhere. Travel with we and I. Grampy Bone do most of talking. Him strong spirit. Much honor carrying him. Keep him close. Easier to touch his spirit. That's why he talked the most.
This bone came from his grandfather, and he keeps it close by, very close by, because he believes he can commune with the spirit of his grandfather and the spirits of his ancestors to learn information about his surroundings and predict the future. Now, one might be tempted to think that maybe Sulik is a psyker. We explored the topic of psychers in my video on when FEV actually worked, and we discovered that psychers manifested psychic ability after their exposure either directly to FEV or to trace amounts of FEV in the atmosphere. But all of the psychers we meet, even those who can predict the future, never say that they're communing with spirits, with the ghostly spirits of the dead, but Sulik does. So the big question is he telling the truth or is he lying? Well, most of the time when we ask him to consult the spirits for us, he gives us rather cryptic messages.
Look for the vision that does not belong. Lifting rocks will find more than slugs. That which is a door does not always lead to anywhere. That which is not a door does. A reed bends, an oak gets blown up. The higher the place, the longer the face. The grass is greener across the fence, but you must first find that fence. Walk the quiet way and learn much.
These messages can be interpreted any way, really. They're practically meaningless, but every now and then, he consults the spirits and then tells us something that there's no way he could possibly know. For example, if we go to Vault 13, he can say,
"The spirits see the same swallowing cloud heading to your home."
And he'll say this at any point. Even if we come to Vault 13 before the Chosen One learns what the player learns in the opening cinematic, which is that the Enclave arrived at Vault 13 and kidnapped all the residents. The Chosen One doesn't know that towards the beginning of the game. There's no way that Sulik could have known it. But here, he knows it because he communed with Grampy Bone. If we go to the Sierra Army Depot, he can say,
"You can make a friend here."
Which is true. It's at the Sierra Army Depot that we can find the robo-brain Skynet, whom we can recruit as a companion. We can make a friend here. If we go to NCR, he can say,
"A strong seed is planted here. A good seed."
And maybe this one isn't that spectacular, but it does predict the future of the NCR. The NCR is indeed a strong nation that grows substantially after the events of Fallout 2. And if we go to the den, he says,
"Hey, they say another bone spirit here. Needs help."
Which of course is something we just learned about, for it was at the den where we met Anna Winslow. Anna Winslow, who was another bone spirit, another ghost who needed help. And he can say this to us before we ever learn about the ghost. So, is Sulik talking to the spirit of his dead grandfather through the bone that he's got lodged in his nose? All evidence points to yes. Next, if we go to Vault 106 during the events of Fallout 3, we can stumble upon a number of baffling apparitions. We appear to see the ghostly visages of Amata, Butch, the tunnel snakes, even our own father. But how could they be here? We left most of them back in Vault 101. The reason we're out exploring is because we're looking for our father. Could these be the ghosts of our friends and family? Because somehow they all died? And if so, what are they doing in Vault 106? Well, we learn the answer to the question if we explore the terminals and notes we find scattered throughout Vault 106, and it's there we learn the story of this vault. The experiment that Vault Tech was doing upon the residents involved pumping psychoactive drugs into the air circulation system of the vault. Vault Tech wanted to see what would happen, and here's what happened. Many of the people just got comfortable and comatose. Some of them lounged around, some of them were easygoing, but many others became psychotic and violent. Indeed, we find many of these residents, or people who were wearing the vault suits of this vault's former residents, wandering the vault in a psychotic rage, and we have to kill them. Putting two and two together, we realize that the psychoactive drug is still pumping through the air vents of Vault 106, which means that the lone wanderer is inhaling it. We didn't see actual ghosts. They were hallucinations. Even though these seemed like ghostly apparitions, they're not. We can explain them away with science. Next, during the Fallout 4 DLC Far Harbor, we can come upon the Mother of the Fog. She appears on a ledge above us and points us in a direction. We can race after her, but we can't touch her. And eventually, she leads us to an irradiated building where we can find a mother icon, a relic that we need to gain access to the Children of Adam's submarine dock. But after we get this totem, the Mother of the Fog disappears. Was she a real ghost? Or was she just another hallucination? Well, at first glance, one might be tempted to think that she's just a hallucination. Because after all, we only see the Mother of the Fog after drinking irradiated water from a sacred spring on the island.
There is a small spring not far from here. Drink from it. Follow where it leads. You come back, we'll discuss you joining the faithful.
This is why she appeared on the ledge above us. We were down at the spring drinking water. Only after that does she appear, and in this strange state, where we hear voices from the fog and see strange creatures out in the distance, she leads us to the mother icon. So perhaps this was all just some sort of hallucination. This theory begins to fall apart, however, when we learn that other people have seen the same apparition.
And the ghost of a woman, covered in mist.
Adam above, you really did see her. The Mother of the Fog. The Mother is a messenger from Adam. Acts as a guide to those important to his plans and the future of this family. She's the one who led the first of us to this place. Most people believe she's some sort of spirit, a creature of the wilds, though a few claim she's just an old hermit. Regardless, our family wouldn't be here without her.
As we learned from Vault 106, hallucinations are likely going to be unique to the individual. The lone wanderer was hallucinating about people he really knew from Vault 101. But to have a hallucination that is shared between different people, that doesn't sound like a hallucination at all. We find further evidence that this mother may be more than just a hallucination when we find notes around the island that all share a similar hand. They all mention the cult of Adam. They talk about a figure watching from afar. They mention the existing confessor Tectus and refer to the previous confessor Martin as the good confessor. They even mention us. They mention the sole survivor's arrival at the island. Could the Mother of the Fog be a real ghost? A corporeal ghost that arrives to guide the faithful of the children of Adam and leave them messages handwritten on paper? Possible. However, I think this theory falls apart when we discover an abandoned shack on the island. This shack has a shrine to Adam. We find children of Adam banners, mannequins, glowing bottles, everything associated with the children of Adam, and a stack of these very same notes written in that familiar and peculiar way. But most revealingly, we find a number of stealth boys, giving us the impression that the Mother of the Fog is a real person, a hermit who travels the island incognito using stealth boys and periodically appears before the children. Though this isn't exactly a smoking gun, because during the sole survivor's vision after drinking the irradiated water, if we try to attack the Mother of the Fog, we can't. If this is a real person, why can't this person take damage? Perhaps we could explain this away by saying the sole survivor is in some sort of sickened state after drinking that irradiated water and can't aim correctly. Okay, maybe we missed all of our shots. Or maybe we could explain it away by saying that this is a scripted event as part of the quest, and just like some characters like quest NPCs are set to be immortal as a necessary part of the game mechanics, they're not necessarily immortal from a lore perspective. And I might be able to buy that. Or we could just take this at face value. She's immune to damage. I suppose one could argue that the mother is a real ghostly figure. However, I think the more likely explanation is that she's a hermit using stealth boys. Next, in Appalachia, during the events of Fallout 76, we find a ruined church just off the road. This is Haven Church, and as we get closer, we hear something. Sounds like organ music. Okay, a little creepy, but nothing unusual about that. Churches have been known to have organ music playing in them. We can head inside to try and learn the story. On the front counter just inside, we find Pamela's note. This was written by a woman who sought shelter here at the church just after the bombs dropped in 2077. We learned that this small community that was trying to survive was running low on supplies, and it was really crowded. The person who wrote this note, Pamela, decided to leave to find food and medicine, and we don't know her fate. Then, heading inside the sanctuary, on the lectern we find a note labeled Prayer. This note was likely written by the pastor of this church, and it was an impassioned prayer to God, and he's praying for the strength, tolerance, knowledge, and confidence to somehow live through this moment, to wait for God to save them, to be able to survive this test, even though it was a test that God promised would never happen again. Here the pastor is referencing the book of Genesis in the Bible, where just after the great flood, God promises to never destroy mankind with a flood ever again, and as a symbol of this promise, he puts a rainbow in the sky. This pastor thinks that God must have broken his promise, seeing the nuclear apocalypse of 2077 as a great deluge of radiation that has engulfed his entire community. But from in here, things start to get strange. We don't find an organ here. Certainly we don't find anybody playing one. We do find an upright piano, but it's a piano, not an organ. We can play it, and it sounds different. Where is this music coming from? We can explore the entire church, and we don't find an organ. We don't find an organist. All we find are bodies and ghouls. However, in one of the rooms, we do find a terminal belonging to a raider named Skig. And on this terminal, we learn the fate of the people who sought shelter here at the church. On December 14th, 2077, a small raider gang led by Skig assaulted the church because one of their members named Brock said that these people had tons of food and resources. Before they could ask the church folk where this food was, one of the raiders named Cal murdered everybody. The raiders decided to toss the bodies out back. Over the months and days that followed, they turned the church into a little bit of a raider base, using it as a point from which to conduct raids upon nearby communities. But one day, on February 2nd, 2078, the author of this entry woke up in the middle of the night hearing some kind of weird music. He thought someone had gotten drunk and was playing a weird holotape, but everyone else was all asleep. In the morning, he asked the other raiders if they had heard the music, but they said no, he must have been drunk or he was just being stupid. However, only a few days later, the music began to play during the day as well, and all the raiders heard it. The author of this note ends his entry by saying, "If you ask me, the folks that got killed in this place are trying to send us a message to move on. Maybe we should listen." A few weeks later, a bunch of ghouls started to invade the church. The raiders were able to fight them off, but this guy decided it was too much. He had never seen a ghoul before, and that combined with the organ music was freaking him out, and so he left. We can explore the entire church, leap upon the roof, examine every tree. We never find a loudspeaker, a holotape, a radio. We find nothing that can explain this organ music, let alone an organ or an organist. This sound is otherworldly. It has no rational explanation, and therefore I think this is evidence of ghosts. During the primary plot of Fallout 2, the Chosen One learns that the Enclave has raided his hometown of Arroyo. He races back to Arroyo as quickly as he can, only to find the town strewn with the corpses of his tribespeople. Now the shaman of the town, Hakunin, is likely a psyker. He's been communicating to the Chosen One using his psychic powers throughout the entire game. It was he who reached out to the Chosen One saying that they were under attack, but when we arrive, we find Hakunin's corpse lying here. But when we get close, he speaks to us.
All were dead or taken. My spirit returned to flesh only to reveal the truth to the chosen.
He tells us that his spirit was sent back into his body so he could deliver a warning to the chosen one. We walk away from this conversation under the impression that Hakunin had died. He was a corpse when the chosen one found him lying here in the ruins of Arroyo. His spirit, his ghost, came back to repossess his body just to deliver this message. But he couldn't stay long. The ghost had to leave, and Hakunin's body goes limp.
For me, nothing. Chosen, you must seek the fold of the Dark Ones and rescue our people. You are the chosen. You must do.
While not a ghost in the traditional sense, Hakunin here tells us a bit about the spirit world. Human bodies have spirits. They exist apart from a body, and they can possess a body, even one that is devoid of life, which I think places Hakunin's final words as part of a very ghostly event. Next up, during the Point Lookout DLC for Fallout 3, there comes a point in the primary plot where we have to explore a bog and find a Mother Punga plant. This is all part of a ritual that nearby tribals have us go through before they can trust us. If we activate the Mother Punga plant and take some of its purple seeds, the screen goes wibbly wobbly and we start to hear and see things. As the lone wanderer tries to work his way out of the bog, he sees all sorts of strange things. Vault-Tec bobbleheads who are where they shouldn't be. Skeletons of people he knew from the past. Places, events, and people who he's met in his travels that shouldn't be here. Are these people ghosts that visit the lone wanderer in the bog? I don't think so. I think this is all a hallucination because there are moments of reality that break through the hallucination. At some point during this quest, we begin to see a floating bone saw sawing back and forth. And upon waking up, the lone wanderer learns that the effects of the punga fruit rendered the lone wanderer unconscious. Tobar the ferryman had followed the lone wanderer into the bog, and upon finding the wanderer unconscious, performed brain surgery on the wanderer, as he had done to many of the tribals, removing a part of the lone wanderer's brain. That's why we saw the bone saw during the hallucination. These apparitions appear to be otherworldly, but they're really just psychological manifestations of the lone wanderer's subconscious, which is why many of the apparitions we find are people and places that the lone wanderer knows and has been to. Pretty psychedelic, but not supernatural. Then, in Fallout 4, we can explore the marble quarry called Dunwich Borers. As we explore deeper, eventually, we step into a room and trigger some sort of flashback. It's brief, and then we are knocked out of it, and we have to kill the ghouls in this room. But if we were able to pause this moment in time and look at it more closely, we see what appear to be solid flesh and blood people engaged in some sort of ritual or partaking in some sort of service. So what did we see? Was it a flashback? A window into the past? Or were these ghosts that just appeared before us? Well, this is really strange because either way, it's supernatural. There's no chemical or substance or drug that can explain this flashback. It's not a hallucination. It really happened. And yet the sole survivor didn't see ghosts. He saw the people who were in this quarry years ago before they were turned into ghouls. The ghouls we've been killing while exploring this quarry were the very people we saw arrayed in this scene. They had become ghoulified. So we were seeing the past. And it happens at another point as well. We stumble into a room and see miners as they were when they were mining this quarry before the bombs dropped. But again, this flashback is brief, and we are pushed back into reality. This is paranormal, but I don't think it's ghostly. Instead, I think this extraordinary event happens due to the Lovecraftian nature of the powers at play here. This entire mining operation by Dunwich Borers LLC was a cover for trying to excavate an ancient artifact in a ruin erected by a pre-human civilization hundreds of thousands of years ago. It's not alien, it's not extraterrestrial. It's not ghostly, it's not spiritual, but it is supernatural, otherworldly, unknowable. Then, in Fallout Tactics, we can stumble upon a special encounter called the Sixth Sense. We find a large Brahmin pen, and one Brahmin, a Brahmin named Cole. Also, this Brahmin can talk, for some reason, and he says, "I see dead Brahmin all the time." Surrounding this Brahmin are a bunch of Brahmin ghosts. What? Naturally, this is an Easter egg reference to the movie The Sixth Sense. The child in that movie has the ability to see ghosts, and his name is Cole.
I see dead people.
So, in this encounter, the one solid Brahmin is Cole, a Brahmin who can see ghosts. The thing is, these ghosts are real. This is a real special encounter. No mods, no wild wasteland trait. Anyone can stumble upon it at any time on the world map. And even though you can kill Cole the Brahmin, we can't kill the ghostly Brahmin. So, in the Fallout universe, humans can have spirits, humans can be ghosts, and apparently, so can animals. Which is a frightening thought, because a lot more animals have been killed over the course of Earth's history than humans have. How many animal ghosts haunt the wastelands? I don't even like to think of it. And finally, during the Nuka World DLC to Fallout 4, we can explore the Grandchester Mystery Mansion. Now, having a mystery mansion here in an amusement park makes a lot of sense. Haunted houses are very popular attractions at such places, and it's probable that Nuka-Cola would have their own haunted house nearby, filled with staff and putting on their own show. This haunted house has its own story too, a story we can learn as we explore the mansion. A narrator comes on the loudspeaker from time to time as we go from room to room, telling us the story of Lucy Grandchester and what happened to her here.
The story of the Grandchester Mystery Mansion begins with Morticia and Hannibal Grandchester.
From this exhibit, we learned that the couple who lived here, Hannibal and Morticia, yeah, totally their real names, had a daughter named Lucy. Morticia almost died during childbirth, and Hannibal never wanted a child to begin with, so he deprived Lucy of any affection during her life. With her father stepping back, Lucy's mother Morticia was really the only person she interacted with, and Morticia tried to be a good mother, playing with her and reading her stories. For some reason, Morticia decided to read Lucy lots of horror stories. Therefore, it should not have been a surprise to Morticia that as Lucy grew up, she began to capture small animals, play with them, and then kill them, skinning them alive.
With no friends to speak of, she would capture small animals to play with. Their skins were found nailed to the undersides of the furniture.
This naturally concerned Morticia, though she decided that her daughter must have been possessed by evil demonic forces. A charlatan psychic named Madame Scarlata arrived and told them that yes, you're right, she is indeed possessed by devils. Hannibal decided to respond by beating the evil out of Lucy. It was only a matter of time before Lucy began attempting to take the lives of her own parents.
Hannibal's favorite cook quit when Lucy put mice in the stew. This is also where Lucy first attempted to kill her parents by poisoning the dessert. Hannibal walked with a cane after that. Lucy quickly learned to stay out of range of his swing.
At length, her father had enough, and we learn from the exhibit exactly what he tried to do and what ultimately happened to he and his wife.
After impaling his foot with a rusty spike that was mysteriously driven into his shoe, Hannibal came to Lucy's room to punish her for the prank. We'll never know for sure how it happened, but he was found with a pair of scissors driven through his eye and into his brain. Lucy claimed she was holding them in self-defense as he tried to beat her with his cane. She said he tripped and fell onto the scissors. When asked why his fingers had all been cut off, she replied that it was so he couldn't hold the cane again. Lucy's mother was found dead in the master bedroom with a cloth doll stuffed in her mouth. Her wrists had rope burns, but no ropes were ever found. Lucy insisted that the doll was solely responsible because Morticia wouldn't give her a kiss goodnight.
The story ends by telling us that with both of her parents dead and no one left to care for her, Lucy was carted off to a mental asylum. However, on her 18th birthday, she escaped from the asylum.
9 days later, she was found hanging in the attic, dead from an apparent suicide.
And so she died in this house, and apparently her spirit haunts it to this day. A creepy and spooky story. We have no idea if it's true or not. It was probably invented by Nuka World just to sell tickets to this exhibit. However, at several points throughout the tour of the house, from time to time, out of the corner of our eyes, we glimpse the figure of a girl. These moments are brief, and it's possible to miss them completely due to long load times when entering, or by combat, which distracts us. But on multiple occasions, we can see the figure of a girl, and sometimes hear her laughter. Indeed, at the very beginning, before we enter the house, if we look up into one of the windows, what is it we see? We see a girl staring straight at us. If playing on the PC, we can use console commands to get a better look. And sure enough, we're not imagining things. There is a girl in this window overlooking us. She stands on a block in order to reach the window in a small room with only one exit, a boarded up red door. Now, I read some reports that people have seen the shadow of wings against the ceiling in this room, giving even more credence to the idea that this may be some sort of ghostly figure. And sure enough, if we look up at the ceiling, we see it. The girl does not have wings, but clearly we see the shadow of fluttering wings on the ceiling. However, I think this is a completely accidental illusion. In order to make this girl stand out and look creepy, especially at night, Bethesda put a false light source by her feet, pointing up at her, giving her the illusion of holding a flashlight under her chin. But what this also did is it cast a shadow on the ceiling, and caught up in this shadow is the hem of her dress. She's wearing an old, tattered dress, and so the hem is really ragged. When it casts a shadow on the ceiling, it gives off the illusion of feathers or wings. But if we take a look at the motion of the wings and compare it to the motion of the hem of the dress, we see that they have the exact same motion. So that is just a creepy coincidence. It was never intended to be seen by the player. We can only see it because I'm using console commands on the PC. But there are other instances inside the house where we can abuse the game's saving feature to confuse the AI of this girl ghost. And in those situations, she'll start running before she's scripted to, or fail to disappear. Doing this, I was able to find her during one of her apparitions and follow her as she ran through the house. She stopped inside the kitchen and just stared at me, oddly. And unsurprisingly, she cannot take damage. But this doesn't really tell us anything, because she is a child and no child in the game can be killed. But even then, if you were to attack a regular child in the game, you would initiate some sort of flight response. They would cower and hide, and she doesn't do that. Additionally, we can't target her in vats. But these are all game mechanics, artifacts of the engine that are necessary to produce this story in the game. What about the actual lore behind this character? What do we think the lore explanation is about her supernatural status? Is she a real ghost? Or was she a reflection, a hologram, some clever part of this exhibit? Well, we don't really know, and there are a few things about the story that don't really add up. For example, she went to the insane asylum and escaped at the age of 18. However, this apparition that we see throughout the house is a much younger girl. Why would the ghost of an 18-year-old appear in a younger state? Maybe her spirit had imprinted itself on the house during the time she was violently beaten by her father Hannibal. And so after she died, her spirit took up residence in the form of her strongest imprint, the poor, tortured young girl. We don't find any mirrors here. We don't find any holographic machines. We don't find any technological explanation for this apparition in the house. So I really don't know. It was designed to be a haunted house. It was designed to be spooky. The story is pretty whimsical. The mother and father are named Hannibal and Morticia, and yet we have no explanation for the ghost that we find here, apart from it being a real ghost. There is one more potential ghost I want to go over, and this may be controversial. But what if our character is stalked by a ghost? Our every movement is watched by a ghost that wants to help us so that in times of trouble, this ghost pops out of nowhere to defend us. What if the mysterious stranger and misfortune from Fallout New Vegas are actually ghosts? On one hand, I'm tempted to dismiss both the mysterious stranger and misfortune as simply game mechanics, not part of the real world, because really the only way we can interact with them is through the perk system and through VATs. These are game mechanics. They're tools that the player uses to manifest his character in the world. They're not really pieces of lore. However, on the other hand, the mysterious stranger, at least, is actually referenced in the lore of the game. If we go to Diamond City and head to Nick Valentine's detective agency, we learn that Nick knows about the mysterious stranger. And not only that, he's been tracking him. If we bring Nick into our party, we learn that we're not the only ones who can see the mysterious stranger. Nick sees him too, and he's just as baffled as we are when the mysterious stranger just vanishes.
Just here. You saw him, right? What the stranger slipped right through our fingers. You, stop! Damn, vanished.
How can we explain this away? A stealth boy? Maybe, but would it be easier to say that the mysterious stranger is a ghost that can take corporeal form, a ghost that can interact with the real world environment to shoot our enemies when we need his help? That misfortune is a corporeal ghost appearing out of the ether to knock down our enemies, making them easier to defeat. What throws a monkey wrench into this theory is the lonesome drifter who we meet in Fallout New Vegas. As I cover in my video on the mysterious stranger, the lonesome drifter gives us the impression that he's the son of the mysterious stranger.
Ever since my daddy left Ma and me and went off to roam the wastes, Ma always said he was a real mysterious fella, even when he was with her. Like he was a stranger sometimes.
That would make the mysterious stranger a flesh and blood human being. The only problem here is that the mysterious stranger also shows up during the events of Fallouts 1 and 2. That means the mysterious stranger was walking the wasteland during the events of Fallout 1 120 years before the events of Fallout New Vegas. But he doesn't look 120 years old. How can we explain this? Maybe the mysterious strangers that appear in the different Fallout games are all different people. Different people with similar styles who all decided to take up the same occupation, but they're still just flesh and blood human beings. Or maybe the mysterious stranger got a hold of some sort of artifact from a pre-human civilization that abnormally extended his life, much in the way that the Crown extended the life of Lorenzo Cabot. This would allow him to be alive throughout the events of Fallout 1, Fallout 2, 3, New Vegas, and 4, and also to father a child 28 years before the events of Fallout New Vegas, because the Lonesome Drifter is 28 years old.
I'm 28. Why?
Or maybe the Lonesome Drifter has nothing to do with the mysterious stranger, and the fact that the gun we get from the Drifter just happens to look identical to the gun that the stranger wields during New Vegas is mere coincidence, and that in reality the mysterious stranger is a corporeal ghost. I don't have an answer to this question, but I'll leave it as food for thought. Do you think that the mysterious stranger and misfortune could be ghosts? If not, what could they possibly be? And what are your thoughts on ghosts in the Fallout universe? Do you think that the paranormal should have been avoided? That we're mixing too many genres in the Fallout universe? Or do you think that ghosts add another interesting layer to the lore of the Fallout universe? Are there any examples I included that you don't think really fit? And are there some examples that you think I might have missed? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. My 2026 thumbnail calendar is available. This calendar is filled with 12 of some of the best commissioned pieces of art that I've used for my video thumbnails this year in 2025. The print quality is amazing and it will look stunning on your wall, so snag one now. But more than anything, I'm just so glad you're here. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon with more videos.